welcome to the first week of Unwrap History. And so, Unwrap History is a brainchild of mine that came out of the love of history, but also wanting to make sure that people who look like me understood their legacy and where they came from, and all those things that we have contributed to the United States history. So that's what we'll be covering for the month of July. And so we're going to jump right in. My name is Dr. Bakita Pegram, or you can call me Dr. P. Either one is fine. I am going to share my screen here. Let's see. And it's very informal. If you have questions, you can put it in the chat. You can put it on the live chat, or you can email me if you think of something later on. Let's see. Let me make this bigger for us. Okay, again, my name is Dr. Bakita Pegram. I am a historian. I have the pleasure of teaching U.S. history, but also podcasting to some students at an HBCU here in Texas called Prairie View A&M University, PV, you know. And so today we're going to be looking at the first week of a month-long series called History Unwrapped, and it's about restoring our history, making sure we know where we came from so we can know where we're going. And this week's series is Unwrapping Freedom. What does that really mean? What is freedom? And freedom is a small word, but it has so many different meanings to everybody. If you ask anybody what freedom means, it's probably going to be the freedom to do what they want to do, the freedom to wear what they want to wear, the freedom to have all the rights that are granted in the Constitution lived out without punishment. And so today we're going to talk about what does that mean? What does freedom means? And so I love quotes. And one of the quotes that I love and I'm sharing with you today is "None of us are free until all of us are free" by Fannie Lou Hamer. And so when we look at freedom in the United States, it started back in 1863 with the Emancipation Proclamation. An attempt. This document didn't really free us because it didn't have enough power to free us, but it was a catalyst into what we know now as freedom. And so when in 1863, when Abraham Lincoln gave us this document, it was supposed to free us, but unfortunately it didn't. So we had the Civil War. And in 1865, that ended the actual slavery, and that also allowed us to have what we know now as freedom through several different other attempts. And so then we moved to 1865 again, and Civil War ended, but we weren't quite free. So Juneteenth came and we were now knowledgeable that we were free. And the South didn't want to acknowledge that the proclamation had been passed. It didn't want to acknowledge that the Civil War had ended and the South lost, the North won. But those things weren't given, that information wasn't given to enslaved people. And so here we are, Juneteenth, 1865, and enslaved people were now made aware that they actually had gained their freedom. But the fight wasn't over. And so in 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, and we actually had to have Civil Rights Act passed, number 2 passed, in order for us to see many of the freedoms that we enjoy today. And so we still are struggling for freedoms, equal pay, for one. Even when you think about just being able to live out some of the constitutional rights that we have under the Bill of Rights, there's still ongoing fights. Even when you look at the news last week here in Texas, there was a protest called No King because many feel that our current administration is operating sort of like a monarchy or a dictatorship, like one of my students told me today. So although we see this timeline and we know in 1863 that the fight for freedom started, we still are fighting for a lot of the freedoms that we see in the Constitution. But freedom is given in four dimensions, and these four dimensions are physical freedom, land ownership, education, and cultural expression. So, Dr. P, what do you mean by physical freedom? Physical freedom, that's self-emancipation. That means you're actually running away from a situation that is oppressive or suppressive. So Harriet Tubman, a great history figure, Underground Railroad emancipated a lot of enslaved people. And so that's what we mean by physical freedom, actually leaving a situation that may be oppressive or suppressive to a person. Land ownership can be freedom. So when you talk about the freedom colonies here in Texas, we have some freedom colonies, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Black Wall Street in Tulsa was a land ownership, also known for many Black businesses. These people, they built a community that had homes, barbershops, beauty salons, cleaners, all you can think of, anything you can think of. This community in Tulsa had it. And unfortunately, they were robbed of their ownership, their land ownership, their freedom, because a group of white people thought that it was not okay, and they burnt it down. And so when we think about land ownership, that is a key part of freedom. Freedmen's Bureau efforts. The Freedmen's Bureau was not just for Black people. The Freedmen's Bureau fed and educated low income people in their neighborhoods. Freedom's Bureau really believed in making sure that all people had the basic necessities, but also having those things that they could provide to their own community. So the Freedmen's Bureau was a big part of Reconstruction and making sure that when all these millions of slaves were freed with no education, no resources, no home, no job, Freedmen's Bureau stepped in to make sure that they could get those resources that they need to be successful and now know what it meant to be a United States citizen. Another part of the dimensions of freedom is education. You can't truly be free until your mind is free. And so there were secret schools, even during enslavement, there were secret schools to educate Black people to make sure that we did know how to count, we did know how to read. But unfortunately, as we know, that did not span across all enslaved people. So HBCUs became really important in educating Black people after slavery, after the Civil War, during Reconstruction, and even now. I am a proud graduate of two HBCUs. So HBCUs were important during that time, but are even more important, I would say, now during a time when Black identity is being erased. It's here, they are here now to kind of make sure that our students, our Black and Brown students, know the contributions of Black people, but also know the legacy that they carry forward. And so freedom schools during civil rights eras were the era was intended to build Black identity, make sure that Black and Brown people knew where they came from and who they belonged to, and had a sense of belonging to know that they were carrying on a torch that was greater than just themselves. And then the last dimension of freedom is cultural expression, making sure that we have those churches that we love, that we can express ourselves through music, hair, fashion, and even names. And when we think about my name in particular, it is an expression of my community. It is an expression of Blackness. And so when we think about freedom, it can be expressed through these four dimensions of physical freedom, land ownership, education, and cultural expression. When we think about land ownership, going back to the Tulsa riots and Black Wall Street, Texas has a history of Black colonies that people after Reconstruction bought land and began to build their own communities. Um, they are disappearing, but they are here. And I'm going to show you a website that you can visit to learn more about them. If you go to Texas Freedom Colonies Project, you can access this website that will tell you more about the Texas colonies. There's some as close as Pleasantville. There's some in Katy, but these colonies are Black owned, and this project is about reserving and preserving our history and making sure our descendants know where they came from. So I encourage you to take a look at this website and learn more about the freedom colonies that you have access to here in Texas, but also in the Houston surrounding areas. And when you think about the atlas here, you can look at it and actually pinpoint and plan trips to learn more about the descendants. You can tell your own story, but you can also hear the story. You can go on here and get a visual history of it through maps, through oral histories. They have documents on here, and this one is not loading. Okay, there it is. 1 second. But it's a great way to learn about the cemeteries where Black families were buried, Black Black and brown people were buried, and how we keep our legacy alive and how we help build Texas. It wasn't just oil, it was farming, it was agriculture, it was the plantations that were around. Well, when they ended, Black people had an opportunity to work and buy those lands so that we could build our own communities. And it's a beautiful story that we're trying to keep alive through websites like this and projects. One of the research projects I'm working on now is about how to generate consent from these communities to be able to tell their stories, but make sure the stories are not just profitable for industries, but also keep the oral histories along so that we can know who we are and what we did to build Texas. So I encourage you to come to this website to learn more about the colonies in Texas. Lastly, what does freedom look like to you? And so what I want you to do is reflect on this between now and next week when we do part 2 of our Unwrap History. I want you to really take time and think about, what does freedom mean to you? And what I want you to do is to bring your stories with you next week, and or share them with me through email, and I'll share that with you in just a moment, where we can talk about freedom and what does that mean, and what does that mean for us today. And when we think about freedom, freedom is shaped by what? So what is freedom to you? And then I want you to write down what shapes freedom. And I can share with you now, you shape freedom. You shape freedom in the way you express your cultural identity. You express freedom the way you live your life out. If you live boldly like Jack Johnson, who was a Black boxer, a heavyweight boxer from Galveston, Texas, he lived his life boldly, unashamed, unapologetically Black. And so you shape freedom by how you live it out every day, how you demand your freedom. And so I want you to think about these 2 things and bring them back with you next Wednesday when we further discuss history. And next week, we'll discuss Reconstruction and our role in Reconstruction, not just after the Civil War, but now. How do we reconstruct the Black community to make sure that our children and our legacy is carried on throughout the world? And so each week this month, you'll get short little bites like this so that you can digest, but not just digest. I want you to share. And so I'm going to record this episode, it's already recorded, and I'm going to share it on Facebook and Instagram, and you're more than welcome to share it as well. And if you want to follow me on Instagram so that you can have access to it, you can go to Bakita Pegram, and you can feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. If you would like to set up a community workshop in your area, let me know. I would love to. You can also email me at bakitapegram@gmail.com. So these history lessons will be short and sweet. Our next one is on July 9th. I can't wait to see you then. Again, share, but also email me. Let me know some things that you want to learn, and we can incorporate that in this month, because this month is all about Black history. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to hearing your comments, and follow me on Instagram, and I'll follow you back. Have a great night.